Max? Max? What the hell? Ah! Boo! Okay. Very clever.
Yes! I win again.
Oh dear.
Sorry, couldn't resist. Those can go there. Have a hand. And a fence. And a mask. Right, let's move all of this. Should we have our effigy join us?
Oh yes, why not? Why not, since you've gone to all that effort?
Up you get.
Let's get his legs the right way around. He's like he's been folded backwards.
There we go. He's going to have to sit like that. How does that look?
Oh, very, very fetching. Very fetching.
It is, isn't it? Yes. Oh.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes. Help yourself to lots of lovely, lovely, lovely beer. Welcome back to Maybe Movies, episode 7, our first show in October with me, Max.
And me, Sam.
A couple of things before we begin. So, first of all, thank you to everyone who has given us a look so far. All of our subscribers, you are all wonderful. And also to all our new subscribers as well. A couple of shout outs. One to my good friend Paul Goldsmith and his campaign that he's part of at the moment, the Creative Protest, which is trying to raise awareness of the plight of creatives in the industry, in particular in the Norfolk area, who have suffered during the pandemic. So give them a look and check the end of the video. There will be a end screen directing you to his channel so you can see what it's all about, and there will be contact details in the description as well. The other one that I have is from an anonymous subscriber who has said, as it is now the wonderful month of October, that we should do a shout out for nothing more than the season itself. It's autumn officially.
Oh, yes.
And so we are going to raise our glasses to the autumn and to these days of no identity.
Indeed.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ah, that's better. And also because it is October, it's very special for us here at Xadrum because on the 16th of October will be our 4th birthday.
Oh, yes, of course.
So to celebrate that, or as we did last year, to celebrate, sorry, you can go back and check on our other social media and find out what that's all about. We're going to be running a bit of a giveaway. So as you may know, if you know us at all, that Xadrum is also a publishing company. And we publish books by 3 generations of writer within my family. So we have 5 print copies of either my grandfather's first book, Verboten, or my father's children's novel, The Refugees from Daffodil Cottage, to give away. It's exclusive to subscribers. All you need to do is subscribe to the channel, ping us an email with contact details so we know how to get hold of the winners. And then what we'll do at the end of the month is we will draw 5 names at random and contact those people to see which of the books that you would like to have. If you check our channel, you'll see there's a link to our website, our new shiny website, which started at the beginning of the month.
Of course, yes.
And so you can have a read and decide which one you'd want, and then we'll contact the winners, obviously, by email. And that's it. So please get subscribing and let us know. So I think that covers all of the stuff to the people at the world at large.
Yeah, the general
yes.
stuff and things, yes.
And scene.
So can I say it? Can I say it?
You can say it.
It's Halloween time!
It is Halloween
it's
time!
Halloween time!
Yes.
It's because it's sort of it's the best time of the year.
It is the best time of the year. Everyone who loves Halloween is brilliant.
Right.
And with that being the case, what I thought we'd do for this month's movie matchups is a bit of a change.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who's followed the show so far will know that we do we pick two films, we take the protagonists from films and swap them, and then discuss the films and see if we can make a new film with protagonists from a different movie. But with it being Halloween, it seems only appropriate that we do horror films.
Of course.
And anyone who's anyone will know that the star of a horror film is the antagonist, not the protagonist.
Yes.
With the exception of Ash.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Ash may be the only exception, but generally speaking, we all love the bad guy.
Exactly. So what I thought we'd do this month is we'd pick two horror films and swap the antagonists and see if we can make a new movie with that antagonist in a new setting.
Okay. So everything else will stay the same, but the antagonist will just be plonked down into whatever setting.
Yes, and this does bring up the first question: are we just simply changing the settings, or are we still taking the plot from the relevant movie and putting it with the antagonist, or is it just the antagonist? That was the first thing I considered as, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. Because the sequence of events that the antagonist sets in motion will be different.
Yes, it will. It'll be
the sequence of events that the antagonist sets in motion in their original film is going to be. It would still be the same. They are still going to do the same things that they would have done.
Yeah,
it's just in a different setting. Are we happy that that's?
Well, yeah,
how we approach it?
It would make sense. Your slasher, your dream killer, or whatever. He's still going to go about his or her business the way they would wherever you plonk them, aren't they? So I think so. I would say so. Yeah.
Brilliant. So now we talk about the movies.
Yes. Which ones are we going to do?
Well, before we get accused of being a purely nostalgia and retro channel, because everything that we've done so far is early to mid 80s or late 70s to early to mid 80s.
I'm sure it's completely a coincidence.
It is a complete coincidence. So I thought we'd go a bit more modern. And so
there's been some good stuff in recent years.
There has been some very good stuff recently, and I think I've picked two of the best.
Okay.
We will see what happens when the Meteor from Colour Out of Space, which was released last year.
Yeah, such a good film.
It still lands in New England.
Yes, it would.
Yes, that is where it lands, but in this case it lands in the middle of a New England fairy tale.
But The Witch.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That would be interesting. We could give that a try.
And so The Witch and, by extension, Black Phillip are up to nefarious things in a more modern New England.
Yes. So, it works. It works. Both farms isolated from their communities. Shenanigans happen. And in a lot of ways about the breakdown of family and relationships.
Yep.
They do. It's a good match. It's a good match.
I have made notes.
You have made notes.
Yes. If anybody doesn't know anything about us, we are firmly of the belief that a notebook is a secret weapon.
Oh, absolutely. One of these days, I'm actually going to use mine.
It's
One
typical.
of these days.
It is typical that he's not brought it with him today.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Sorry, it's just occurred to me. How did you get in here again?
Who said I ever left?
I'll give you that because it's Halloween. So, yes, interestingly enough, this one does break our the 3-year cycle that we've been having on previous ones. So yeah.
How old is The Witch then?
Was 2015.
Oh, well, it's only just outside.
Only just, but
yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah, it's close enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah. I can see having to play with that. I really can. I'm not sure what we get because they're very specific situations, both of them.
It's interesting. It's easier to take the meteor from Colour Out of Space, because the events would not exist
That is
without
a
it.
much easier story. In fact, it's even simpler because of their lack of technology and knowledge and understanding of things outside of the realm of the flesh and land.
Exactly, yeah.
So for them, it's much more
It makes
incomprehensible to them, isn't it?
It is, but it also makes for potentially a more interesting story, because so much of what happens in The Witch itself is to do with their human interactions, their interpersonal relationship.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
Because you have no idea whether there is as an audience, we know that there's something going on, but from the point of view of the characters,
yeah.
everything that happens is quite secular, and it's only to do with their belief and their faith that
Some
it's
of the things
given
I
a
love
lot
about
of
the
additional importance.
Well, apart from 2 scenes,
it plays out as if it could easily be a psychological horror rather
Exactly.
than a supernatural one.
Yeah.
I love the fact that it instead of choosing one or the other, it actually chooses to do both. There is the psychological horror of the breakdown of the family, but there is also a witch.
Yes.
So I suppose in the transposed case, there is something in the woods that's tainting the land.
Yeah.
So it's still, it's got a similar, it's still got the same premise.
It does.
It's just the force driving it is different.
There are difficulties.
Of course.
I think the
Fancy,
first.
but what are you thinking of?
Well, the first one that occurred to me, and especially I think anyone who knows the story of Colour Out of Space. I mean, I know we're just looking at the movie, not the original Lovecraft story.
Yes, I was tempted to look at the story, but then I realised I might be actually taking my opinion about how the film should be structured.
As opposed to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know the film does follow the structure and the beats of the original story very faithfully, just transposes them in time. No, just in time, really, because it's still in the same place
Exactly.
as the original story set.
But the problem that I saw, and again, it's a minor one, we can gloss over it if we need to, but because it is something that is recognised and kept in the film version as well, is that the protagonists aren't the family, the protagonists is the hydrologist.
Oh, yes, well, yes, because in the story, he's the narrator.
Yes.
In the original story, that's the character who narrates the story.
So do we need somebody that fills that role in this new version or not? Or are we just going to gloss over that?
This is interesting because I hadn't thought about that. But The Witch is a film without witnesses. It's told omnisciently, isn't it?
Yes.
The question is, who would it be?
Well, this is the thing. I thought of a way around it, but again, it may be breaking what we're doing here.
Okay, all right. Well, lay it out for me.
Okay. We're transposing antagonists, that's fine. At the same time, if we want to keep that outside source, now, when we put the witch into Colour Out of Space, we need to find a place to put them out. She can either just be living out in the woods wild, on their grounds, or possibly even not on their land, just somewhere out in the forest, because it's quite a wooded area. We could swap her out for a character, and I was thinking Tommy Chong's character, and just have him as a wild mountain man living, somebody else who's left the colony who's living out in the woods.
So would you want to take Tommy Chong out of the Colour of Space? Because I don't know, maybe it's the way I think, but I've been assuming that if we do something like that, it gets removed from the other premise.
Or are we just...
No, that works. That works. This is just how my thought processes went, but it was all open to interpretation.
So we're agreed, if we bring Tommy Chong,
or a 16th century version of Tommy Chong, into this story,
We're just
then
saying
we
this
take Ezra from the Colour Out of Space, so he's no longer in the Colour Out of Space.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And we are literally just doing this because we love saying Tommy Chong because he's brilliant.
Well, you know what? It does make sense because, in The Witch, there is someone living in the woods.
Yes.
It's the witch.
Exactly.
Of course, we don't have a witch in this story.
Yeah.
So, but there is still someone out in the woods. So, no, actually,
because he can then serve the role of the hydrologist of Ward Phillips.
Yeah.
We can just play that as he's living wild. He's a wild man. He knows he's gone back to nature, as it were. So he can be the one who recognises
classical frontiersman who just gone way out into the wilderness.
Yeah, but he's the one who can recognise that this is something unnatural beyond what the family are going to do anyway.
Yeah,
and you can fill that role.
So
you don't want to be.
So he's a wild man. He's a extremist frontiersman.
Yes,
who's taken himself out into the woods and built a little cabin or something.
Yes,
and he's living like on the very edges of what could be civilized behaviour. And then this family tries to find a farmstead in his territory, in the region,
because it works as well.
Because if you're used to being the only person for 100 miles and then you see a plume of smoke, even if it is 10, 12 miles away,
you're going to be aware.
You'd be aware of it, wouldn't you?
Plus, I think we can write it into the backstory, into the parts of the film that are not shown.
Yeah.
Because William from The Witch,
yes,
that's a hell of a lot of work for him to have done, to build a house himself.
I know. It was only when I was rewatching it a few days ago for like the third or fourth time, I was thinking, right, so as I get the impression is they arrived at the beginning of that season. So and the story begins in the fall, harvest time.
Yeah.
So they've had, at best, this is New England, it gets bloody cold and bloody hard in the winter, at best 6 months to build that entire house, which isn't a log cabin.
No.
It's a proper planked house.
With plastered
It's
walls
plastered inside. Yeah. And
he's halfway built a barn.
Yeah, and the roof, and the attic as well. I mean, it's got
an attic space. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd have had to have had.
I have to admit, when I was watching it, I was thinking, did he?
It's one of the few plot holes in it. It's like, how did he do this?
It is. Yeah. It would make more sense if it had been a year or more that they'd been there, so they would have had time to build it.
Yes. So that brings me on to
But yes, that's a problem with the original film, not with the film
what we're doing. But that, as we agreed on that, on moving Tommy Chong or moving Ezra into this film as well to make it work. Therefore, I would also say to marry that, we will need to take. There is somebody who is integral to the witch that has to stay with the witch, and that's Baby Sam. I think the baby needs to go to our new version of Colour Out Space.
I see. Our
new version of the witch, should I say?
Yeah, it did occur to me because there are no infants.
No, there's a lot more kids on the one side, which is.
I mean, obviously that's not a discussion from right this very second.
No.
But there are arguments made that there may be characters that you could label as virgins in the story, but traditionally it is not just someone who's unbaptized, but it is the unbaptized fat of the fat of an unbaptized infant.
Yes.
That is meant to make the flying potion, which are so famous for. So you really do need. I mean, Jack is 7 or 8.
Not an infant anymore, is he? He's young, but he's not young enough to fill that role.
Exactly, and also we do need him because he will have to fill the role of the twins.
Of course he will. Yes, of course. Yes, because he'll have to be the one talking to Black Phillip.
Yeah.
Of course he will. All right. Okay. Wait. Hang on a second. I'm getting tangled up. We're going to back and forth. So which one are we doing first?
I'm going to say let's do our new version of Colour Out of Space, or Colour. Let's call it Colour a New England fairy tale, folk tale, whatever.
Yes, that's a nice one.
Yeah,
I like that.
Cool. We start the film as it begins, then leaving the plantation.
Yep, and finding the field, finding the is it a glen? Is that the proper term? It's a meadow.
Glade or a meadow.
Yeah. And then cutting to sometime later when
the house is built and things like that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That will all start as it does. There's no need to change any of that. There are some wonderful panoramic shots.
Do we still have the same interpersonal problems? Has William solved the silver cup?
Yes.
Things like that. Yeah.
I think they would all have to remain. Their troubles
Yeah.
don't cease because.
Of course.
I mean, I did think if you wanted to foreshadow it, when you see them when they get to the glen, glade, And they do, because some of the panoramic shots and scenic shots are beautiful.
They are amazing, yeah.
You could, if you want to do it, you can make it as subtle as you like, just have a tiny light up in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
If it's come from some distance.
Yes, it has. You know, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Again,
Maybe
doesn't
nice
have to
touch.
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Touch. So, all right. So here's a question:
Are their crops still failing?
Well,
because traditionally crops failing was always blamed on witchcraft, and so if there isn't a witch, then is their crop still failing?
I mean, it's still conceivable crops still fail. They do. They still, they did. Before we figured out agriculture and nitrogen fertilizers and all the rest of the stuff that keeps plants healthy, it was always a risk.
I'd say yes.
Yeah.
Because as we see as the film develops, all of a sudden they're not failing.
Yes. Yes, that's why I was asking the question, because that also occurred to me. It would be a nice showing them failing and then suddenly this abundance
Yes.
would, I think, would work nicely. So yes, okay, great, we're agreed then. So their crops are failing.
So yeah.
So we are literally probably opening with that same scene that we had with William and Caleb hacking down the thing and his father finding all the...
Well, I mean, that's, yes,
corn.
that's how it begins, isn't it? Yes, where they're looking at it and it's like,
Yeah.
things aren't as good as they could be.
So how early on do we want to have the meteor arrive? Do we want to spend a bit of time going over their troubles and tribulations and get to understand their situation before we bring the meteor, or do we want to bring it almost immediately into the picture?
I think we want to build it up so we can do...
So we'll spend a bit of time with them, but maybe there'll be signs in the background shots. Maybe that this light will get larger or brighter or more distinct or something like that.
Yeah.
So how far do we want to go into it before we bring the meteor? Because there's the shot of the farm and there's them harvesting, and it's just a shot of them cutting the corn, and it's not until the next morning when Caleb gets out of bed after spying on his sister that he goes out and his father's peeling back the corn and it's all rotten.
Because the witch itself, once they've established the family on the homestead, on their farm, the next thing that happens is the baby disappears.
Yes.
That happens pretty much straight away.
Because, well, no, there's that scene, that's what I mean, there's the scene with Caleb and his father, and they go hunting in the woods, and his father outs himself trying to shoot at a hare.
That's probably the point where we want to bring it in, or do we want to bring in Ezra earlier as well?
Yes, yes, because we do need them in some way to meet.
So maybe while they're hunting in the woods, maybe instead of finding the hare, they find Ezra. Because technically the hare is the devil's work.
Yes.
So technically, it's there could be a hare there again.
I did have a laugh about
Natural things
that.
occur. Huh?
The black rabbit.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But we do want them to have that hunting. We need to see how difficult the situation is.
Yes.
And it would be a perfect time to meet Ezra, because then he's that man out in the woods and he's not associated with the house.
Yeah, so that works. So, do they think he's a witch?
Well, this is the question. I mean, how Ezra is Ezra? Because he's pretty far out there, man.
He is pretty far out there. Okay, so he'd turn up. Probably wouldn't have them hunt, but certainly want to go and check that they're okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's entirely, again, if we want to go down that route, he could be somebody else from the plantation who left sometime before then.
Could be, yeah.
No reason to say that they know who he is,
Yeah.
depending on the side of the plantation, but even then there is, because they talk about a village, isn't there, as well? You never see it, but there is a village that they mention.
Yes, because they talk about going to town to get a wife husband for Thomason and spend things and stuff. Yes. Although I wasn't sure whether that was meant to be a separate village or whether he was actually referring to the plantation.
I guess it was somewhere different because he refers to it as the town or the village, and then they refer to the plantation.
Of course he does. Yes. No, good point. Good point.
So I just guess there were two separate places. So Ezra turns up, makes sure that he's okay, maybe dresses his wound or something,
yeah,
and packs them off back.
And I can imagine there'd be,
like a conversation, and maybe Ezra's like, game's been scarce hereabouts for this past year or two, or something like that, like a little comment that you may have actually picked a bad spot to be living in, just another little...
Yeah. And again, that's because, as we find out later on, when William confesses his sin of pride,
Yes.
he's not going to listen to him.
No, of course not. No.
Yeah, no, I've done this thing as well.
I know what I'm doing. I can feed my family.
Yeah.
And he'll ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thank him kindly for his advice in that particular pious man. That indicates how very little he considers.
Exactly. Yeah, and also just his natural aversion to him because he's decided to live out in the wilds like he's like beyond the grace of God almost.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And then they would then come back home, and then so you have the scene that evening as well, when they're having dinner.
Yes.
Which brings up the thing about the cup, which is that's the point. That's why I thought it had to be that night that the meteor arrives. Because,
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
because there's especially this particular symbology in it, and there is a bit of a coming together, a crescendo moment of these various little things niggling, starting to get the way that Catherine just niggles at Thomasin.
Yes.
You know, even when her husband tells her to stop it.
Yeah. You know, it's when all of these little things that are these tiny grievances that have been building are starting to come to a head.
Exactly.
And then a light comes from the heavens.
Especially, yes, because they begin being God-fearing folk.
Yeah.
They say their prayer for abundance, their prayer to the Lord to look after them and to guide them.
Yep.
And something falls from the heavens.
Exactly.
So with that, because that's very stylized in Colour Out of Space, what the family are doing, where they are at the moment that it arrives.
Mm-hmm.
So we may need to see a bit more of that. So possibly bringing in some of Caleb kind of reluctantly spying on Thomasin while they're asleep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, all right, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Because the scene where they're overhearing, it's not that night, it's a few days later.
It is, yes.
It's sometime later. So we don't know what's happening then. That we just assume that they finish the night and go to bed. But yeah, we can have the twins asleep.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's such an intimacy between the twins. I mean, you can even have something like while they're sleeping, they just suddenly start holding each other's hands as the light's getting brighter.
That would be a lovely touch. Yes, I like that image.
Yeah.
I do like that image. Well done. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
And then Thomasin asleep, because they're all sleeping in the same room, don't they? Or they all sleep up in the attic. Is it up in the attic?
No.
There must be like a sec. No, it must be. Yeah, I think it is.
No, they sleep on the ground floor. They go up into the attic when Caleb comes back sick, and they take him up there.
I thought they were up in the attic because when they're saying, "Are you listening?" Because Mum and Dad sleep downstairs.
Yeah.
And you can hear them. They're obviously listening from upstairs. And I thought the only story above was the attic.
Maybe you're right. Maybe
It's
you're
difficult
right.
to tell because in that scene it's dark and you can't see the windows.
Yeah.
It's hard to place where they are. But yes, and so Mum and Dad will be downstairs.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yeah. So let's just say, for the sake of our argument,
And I'm sure you can all tell us how very, very wrong we are in the comments. In fact, please do. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
But for the moment, let's assume. All right. So mother and father sleep downstairs, and the children sleep up in the attic.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. So, as you say, so we see the twins holding hands as the light comes closer. Caleb is stealing a glance at his sister and in sleep.
Obviously, they're not geographically separated the way they are in The Colour Out of Space because their house is smaller.
Exactly.
And they all sleep together. But still, we can see them in their little isolated moments of Caleb stealing a moment, of the twins getting closer together. There's what their individual moments are as the light arrives.
You can still do that without having them separated across a big house or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm fond of... Oh, no.
Fond of...
Yes, no, because there's no Samuel in this story.
There's no Samuel, no.
There's no Samuel in this story. So I kind of like the moment that the parents were having in The Colour Out of Space, that they were trying to have some intimacy together for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
Because I feel that, with the situation of their family, it probably has been a while since there's been...
And again, but families from that period are notorious for having large families.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, because they've been working hard all year or whatever it has been.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And now things are getting to where they are, and maybe I don't know. I just like the idea that symbolically what the parents are trying to do at that moment.
Yes, I agree. What
Because it's about intimacy, but it's also about potentially expanding your family. Which is a bit of a foreshadowing for the family that's about to shrink.
dramatically.
That's why I like the symbology of that moment.
Yes, yeah, I like it. I like it. There's certain things that will change because there is a dog. We've got Fowler.
Yes,
but there's no. They don't. It's an animal. It's not a pet. It's a working dog.
Yes, it's a working dog.
So
it doesn't mean you can't see him snarling, maybe in a pen or tied up out in the yard or something like that.
So I've got an idea.
Okay, go on.
With this scene. So we have this thing with Caleb. He's stealing a glance at his sister.
Yep.
But then goes off to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can see, again, just on his face, how this thing is affecting his dreams or what's going through his head.
Yeah.
Because in the original way, we had, because Jack gets up.
Yes, he does, yes.
So again, this thing about the twins, they get up.
Yeah, okay.
And just imagine a nice image. Imagine that shots are down the length of the attic.
Yes.
With just the two of them, Thompson and Caleb asleep.
Yeah.
And then just the two twins with their back to the camera.
Yeah. Holding hands.
Staying at the window with the light outside.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it. So, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a nice one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, boom, hits the ground. I'm going to say that it doesn't land on the farm.
No.
I'm going to say it lands closer to the brook.
Yes.
Because
they don't have a well.
They don't have a well, but the brook is...
but that is their source of water. Yeah.
That wakes everybody up.
Yes. Fowler's snarling and
going
snapping.
Going
crazy.
Yeah.
The kids are...
The goats as well.
Of course, yeah, the goats and everything, yeah.
And so the twins are staring catatonic.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is, what's going on? There's a brilliant light.
I can imagine
people probably Catherine, because she seems to be like, to me, she struck me as the most pious of the family.
Yes.
Like she spends so much time in that film praying.
Yes, she does.
And I imagine her first reaction would be to cross herself and start praying for mercy because she thinks it's the apocalypse or something.
I think to her mind, her first response is, "Oh dear God, God's judgment has come upon us, please, Lord have mercy."
It's a small thing, but it's not because of the film. Because of the way the film is shot and the time that it's set, everything is purposefully quite washed out.
Yes.
And there's not much. There's not much in the way of colour, and now there is.
Exactly.
It's something completely other from their experience.
Yeah, actually, and now you mention that, it's going to have a much sharper, more profound impact.
Because of the colour palette of the witch at the beginning, which is much drabber than the colour palette that we see in The Colour Out of Space.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a normal,
modern setting,
wilderness environment sort of thing. But it's it's full of vibrant greens and browns and things like that. Whereas, like you say, it's very sort of straw coloured.
Yes,
very straw coloured in the witch, isn't it?
Very brown.
Yeah.
I mean, so even the forest itself is.
And then, of course, this brilliant pinky purple bluey colour.
Yeah.
Cropping up everywhere, it'll strike out so much more profoundly. So I think it'll actually be more effective in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. As soon as the thing hits the ground, that everybody is up. William will go to the door, I should imagine. I can imagine Thompson trying to rouse the kids and then probably calling for Catherine.
Yes. Yes, and yes. Because Caleb's the brave one, he would go to the door. Thomason is a reluctant caregiver, but still a caregiver nonetheless.
Yes.
So yes, I agree completely. That's exactly what would happen. And then, of course, with the various amounts of commotion, I imagine Catherine would head upstairs and William would be out in the yard going to see
what it is.
What it was, yeah.
So the two of them will go out and then the others would follow once.
Yes.
Well, yeah, no, so I imagine, William and Caleb, being the men of the house, temporary to their time, they would go out and investigate.
Yes.
Probably with Fowler.
What didn't we already agree? Fowler was probably outside.
He was probably outside anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's probably already down there.
Yeah.
So that's probably it. He gets off his lead, runs after them, so they go after him because again there was still a reluctance to go out.
I'm thinking they go to untie like they're going to take him with them, but as soon as he gets undone, he just whoosh.
Yeah.
Whooshes off into the darkness, and of course they're chasing after him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they find this thing in the ground. I was thinking as well, because it becomes a thing for Nathan, for Nicolas Cage, in the original film, that there's this smell. He can't get rid of this smell.
Of course, that's right. Yes, he's the one. Yeah, he gets the smell all the time, doesn't he?
Which I like, because that works as well, because to somebody with William's 17th century sensibilities, it's the smell of brimstone.
Of course, yes.
Yes, for Nathan it was the smell of cancer, wards, and death. But for him it would be the smell of brimstone, because he fears damnation so very much. Yes. Which
is interesting, because it already establishes this in his mind as it's something evil.
Well, yes.
Which makes it, and again, for him that's what it is, but because nobody else can smell it.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So it's, are you all right? Are you okay? Are you sure? It depends on how much they sit on his word, whether they believe him.
Yes.
Well, wait. Think about this logically. At this point in time, we're just talking about William and Caleb. Caleb's going to believe his father. He does worship him a bit. We've seen that by the way he watched whether it's his father around. So even though he can't smell it, I think he'll agree with his father, but look at him in a slightly funny way when his dad's not looking back.
Yeah.
I think that's what we'd see, because he wants to agree with his father, and he would say so. But we would see him going like, and then see in his face that maybe he doesn't smell it.
No, that holds water, because we see in the original film he does question when they go when he's asking him to recite scripture and that whole conversation about original sin.
Oh yes, no, he does question. Yes,
he does question quite a lot. Why? What have I done? It's more in the context of what has Samuel done, because he was a baby. What sin could he have possibly committed? That he's starting to question the faith. So this could serve as that instead.
Well, it was very common to take astrological events as signs from God or something similar, so...
Because that brings up another question, is would they know...
I feel reasonably certain that William's going to interpret this as some sort of sign, and then the smell is going to...
Because I did look it up. I did have a look at if they would know what this potentially was. And the word meteor did exist. Apparently it was formed in the 1500s.
It was, but William and his family are not educated.
No, they're not. And also, what an actual meteor is, that it comes from space, wasn't something that was understood until the 19th century.
Okay.
They believed them to be some form of atmospheric.
Oh, right. Okay.
Disturbance.
Didn't realise that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But yes, but to a pious mind, anything like that's going to seem as like a sign either from God or from
the other place. From Black Phillip.
Yeah.
Who's not here.
He's not here.
But William would nonetheless, he would interpret it that way, I think.
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Black Phillip is not in the building.
And strangely enough, I think that might play into his pride.
Okay, how's that?
Well, even if he thinks he's received a sign from the devil, there's a little bit of pride in the thought that you're important enough to be...
Yeah. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, maybe I'm talking rubbish, but I'm just
no,
thinking...
It's that, because that's the whole thing with faith, isn't it? You have to take everything on faith, because there is no rational... You can't validate it.
Yeah, there's no rational source.
Yes, you can't say, oh, well, God is this because he's just done this. But here, from his sensibility, here is evidence that his faith has weight.
Yes.
But there is a God.
Yeah.
Because if this thing has come from the enemy...
Yeah, I think it will play into his pride in a strange kind of twisted way. I'm just going to take a brief beer break.
Okay, you go ahead, take a brief... I think the goblet needs fresh blood. So they are out by the meteor. They found it. They again this horrible smell.
Yeah.
Caleb can't smell it. Sends Fowler back.
Having chased all this way, Fowler is not going to go closer than 10 feet to it or
Yeah.
whatever, and is just snarling and barking at it.
At which point, I can imagine certainly Thomason would come out and have a look.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
His head's strong enough to do so.
Yes, that's true.
And will probably get sent back, but probably won't go.
Yes.
And
That's pretty much how things go in the
that's pretty much how
original
they go, and they just kind of leave it, don't they? They don't.
Then, if I remember rightly, in Colour I suppose it cuts back to indoors with Jack being
Yes.
comatose.
That's it. Thompson comes out to say there's a problem with the twins.
Yeah, that's of course, yes. Yes, and that would bring them back to the house. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that would be that.
So that'll bring them back, and
So we have the same scenes play out, but of course instead of just one little boy, it's the twins being comatose, and finally, after everybody can become somewhat frantic, finally snapping out of it.
yeah, if we want to, you can have just a slight cutaway to Ezra watching from the woods. I don't know if we need it for this.
Well, in this version of the story,
No, we don't. We don't need it, because if he's filling the role that Ward Phillips fills, he doesn't know anything about it until he turns up the next day when the mayor and the sheriff turn up. 'Cause he
okay,
arrives
right,
in.
yes, so he'd come down the next day. Yes, you're right.
So so they would go back in. Obviously, he doesn't hit the bottle.
No. That's one thing that doesn't happen to this family.
No.
But perhaps of course, I know it's weird, but William's indulgence is chopping wood.
Well, you see, I was thinking about that, and yes, he could go and do that, because I was thinking that would make a nice equivalent for him to Nathan in the original watching the TV.
Mm.
He sits there, has his drink, and he watches it. Just kind of loses, switches off, and you get the thing with the TV. As we go further along with this, and as things develop, he goes out and chops wood, but he's seeing, because it's starting to get into the wood.
Mm.
He starts seeing things in the wood,
Yes.
and that's what hypnotizes him instead.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I could see that, yeah.
But I mean, I think it can be as simple as he goes back in, tries to rouse the children, and then they just come around.
Yes.
As Jack does.
Yeah.
And then it would be a question of panic to a degree. You know, what's out there? What do we do? You know, are we damned?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But I think again, for the story to work, their rationale is, well, we're okay. Everyone's right. There's a strange smell.
Yeah. It's over there.
Yeah.
Things like that, yeah.
And I think for this one, because you're not going to have the additional characters like the mayor, like the sheriff, like the press coming out.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is a shame, because we do lose some lovely scenes there. But I think the next time when they go back the next day.
I would be tempted to have someone from the village stop by. Because, of course, we know that somebody from the village stops by sometimes. He traded the silver cup.
Oh, I
He didn't
missed
go
that.
to town. He didn't go to the town and trade the silver cup. Somebody came out and traded to the house and traded with it.
I missed that. Oh, well
Yeah.
spotted. Well spotted. I didn't pick up on that.
So maybe like an itinerant trinker or a trader of some sort might pass through.
Okay.
Just to increase the bulk and give a little more context, because, you know, that's the thing. In the Colour Out of Space, they are meant to be less isolated than they are in The Witch.
Yes.
Now, obviously, we can't change too much, otherwise we start losing the story that we're creating.
Mm-hmm.
But having something from the village come out and at least be a witness to it,
Mm-hmm.
and then and then just probably never appear again, because by that point everything's starting to go downhill and it's just them and Ezra.
Exactly, because the thing to remember with this as well, I mean, we know they are some distance from the plantation, because we know that they can't get there without a horse within the space of a day. So they are some way away. But even in the plantation, everything's going to be candlelight, an open flame.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, the nights are darker, so they will have seen something.
Yeah, oh, yeah. They will see something. Yeah.
So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that someone will come looking.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, he said,
when he talked about going to the village to get help, he could be back in 2 days. So it's a day's journey to the village on horseback, but through dense woodland. So how far away can it be? I always travel about 35 to 40 miles a day.
Without wearing out, but it would be slowed down significantly by the woodland. So it's probably something like 15 or 20 miles away.
Okay, yeah, that works.
Which would be beyond the horizon line, because the horizon line's 12 miles. But they would have seen the light on the horizon. And they would probably have heard the boom, because it made the ground shake. They would have heard and seen something.
So we would then move into the next day. We go back out to have a look. It started to break open. Yeah. Because it sinks into the ground, doesn't it? It falls through.
It hits there and it's just sitting there like that. And it's not until the storm, and then
it falls through to the edge because of the
goes
lightning.
down through.
That's it.
But it starts infecting things almost immediately.
Almost immediately, yeah, absolutely. Because the next day they'd come out and there'd be
the pink flowers or whatever.
Little pink flowers turning up.
Yeah, and again in that very dun straw background.
Yes.
They would stand out so clearly.
Yeah, and especially because they got to go to the brook to get their water. Yeah. Again, doesn't help matters at all.
I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but does this mean that the twins are hearing someone speak to them from the brook?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And what I also thought as well is because there's so much in The Witch with the twins with their singing.
Yes, that's a very good point. And they make up songs all the time.
They do.
And you can tell from the words of them that they're literally songs they make up.
Yeah. So their singing should figure into it because what happens to...
So maybe instead of the whistling, have them sing?
Have them singing, but they should be singing about a thing. About some kind... Or there should be something in there because I noticed with Colour Out of Space, when Jack's drawing, the creature that he's drawing is basically what him and his mum become.
Oh, I totally fucking missed that.
You look at it, obviously it's a child's drawing,
I
but
was
if you look
really
at it...
paying attention this time as well and everything. I missed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at it, again, it's a child's drawing, obviously, but the creature that they form into, if you look at the legs, the way the bits that come off the top and everything, it's essentially what he was drawing.
A bit like in
what do you call it? Stranger Things, when Thingamajig's trying to draw the Mind Flayer, and it's a abstract crayonization of the actual thing.
Yeah. So in this case, they don't draw, but they sing. So they could be singing a song about this thing, about this creature or something.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Because that's the thing to remember. The entities of the colour itself.
And I like it because it's one of those things, I mean, that's damned annoying and creepy with the children in the first place. But instead of just having them sit there and whistle at the river, having them sing songs to it.
Mm-hmm.
Creepy children singing songs, man.
Yes.
It's one of those ones that goes right to the pulse. It's right up there with creepy clowns.
Yeah.
And
it opens us up straight away. Oh, Thomason, go to the brook and get water. And there's just the two kids there singing songs to the brook.
Yeah,
it's like coming through the underbrush.
Songs, yeah,
that, oh God.
Don't start.
That. Don't start. That is, yeah. So the next day, so they get up, they go down. I mean, it could even be that they go to have a look and the twins are already down there.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So, right, so we're cutting away to the next morning and they're looking. So who arrives first?
Do we take our merchant, our tinker arriving first?
Because
in the Colour of Space, it was the mayor and the policeman, and then it was Ward.
And then Ward turns up afterwards, while they're doing all of that.
So maybe do it that way. So while they're there, the tinker comes to
play his trade.
Yeah.
They will talk to him, and I mean, he may have even seen something while he was journeying through the forest the night before.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he might be the person from town who went.
Or it could be as simple as William and Caleb are down having a look at where the meteor landed.
Mm-hmm.
Tinker turns up at the house, speaks to Catherine, and she says, "You need to speak to my husband."
Absolutely, he doesn't have to be here because of that, although he can know about it.
Mm-hmm.
But because he's been here before, he's traded before. He's probably coming to trade.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense for him to be there. There's no excuse needed.
Yeah,
he comes built because we've made him a trader. He comes with a built-in excuse.
Yes.
So I think that's, and then of course he would have all sorts of opinions that would be outsider opinions and probably not like their own, because I'm not imagining him being, in the same way that
The mayor in the Colour Out of Space, it was completely dismissive and belittling of their opinion and their reaction to it. Their piousness and their, oh gosh, what sign has come from heaven or hell, and he's just like, all right,
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be a pious person. It would give a contrast. It would show. It would be.
Contrasting viewpoint to theirs.
Yeah, it would give a reflection.
Yes.
It would reflect their sins and their hypocrisies.
Yeah.
To them, because Ezra's the other way. He doesn't give a shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's the wild man. He's the opposite. Whereas this is the guy coming from civilization.
Yeah.
Pious backwater. Blah blah blah.
Exactly. He's a trader, so he's going to be a bit more worldly wise.
That's what I mean, and he would have a different reaction to it, and it would. I think that would give quality to the scene,
and it would help, because at the same time, I really want to keep leaning into this whole notion of sin, even though we don't have the witch. Because of their pious nature, that nature of sin has relevance to the story.
So this is interesting. This actually does then inform the next scene. Then,
hang on.
No, I'm getting ahead of myself slightly, because so the Tinker turns up.
Yes.
And is talking with him.
Get his viewpoint on it, or her view. Well, presumably his, because 16th
and then
century.
Ezra turns up as well, and so you get his viewpoint on it.
Yes.
But the general consensus that we come away with is that they think William is talking a load of old shit.
Yes. It's just a rock from the sky.
Yeah. Which then can serve the same function as the TV crew.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what he's raging about in the evening.
You with me?
Yeah.
You with me? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That's why, because it's all of that stuff, because it plays into his pride. All of it does. And that's why I know that technically the whole nature of sin within the family is very much a part of the mythology of the time and the folk tale view of witches and the devil at the time. But within the context of this story, it still matters.
Of course it does.
Because in many ways, if you look at the Colour Out of Space, their reactions and their lack of reactions are their personal character flaws, their sins.
Nicolas Cage refusing to understand when everybody's trying to tell him that something's terribly wrong because he's too proud.
Yeah, exactly. And it works. It works perfectly because that's what the colour does. It accentuates.
But because of the era this story's in, the nature of sin is relevant.
Yes, of course it is.
And
it's everywhere.
In the Colour Out of Space, it's a character flaw. In New England, in 16th century New England, that's a sin. Mm-hmm. It's still the same thing. It's a character flaw. But back then, a character flaw was a sin.
Yeah. It's absolutely a damnable offence.
Yeah.
That works. Yes.
And so I do really want to lean heavily into that.
As we go forward, that's going to inform how they will react to the events that are going on around them.
And then we can get within that exchange as well. Mm-hmm. Ezra's kind of, I don't like this.
Yeah, oh no, I mean, I think Ezra would take it more seriously because he lives out in the woods and he's seen some strange stuff, but he doesn't think it is that what Williams thinks it is.
Yeah.
He's pragmatic in a different way, whereas the Tinker is probably, it's just a rock from the sky, shut up.
And you'll probably notice things like the flowers straight away.
Yes. Got to notice those changes straight away.
Yeah.
Because he hunts and forages like a wild man would. So he's going to see those things, and they will affect, because you're hunting and you're used to everything being green, purple.
Yeah.
This is right.
But being a wild man, therefore being reticent, stoic, not talking a lot, we'd see him notice it. He wouldn't necessarily say anything.
Mm-hmm. We could also, if you wanted to, because we know that William has told Caleb that he took the cup. So,
yes, he has, yes.
So Caleb could then say, well, maybe this thing we could sell it.
And even is a conversation in the colour out of space.
Yeah.
You know, is it worth something? I'm sure somebody says, you think it's valuable?
Or something like that. You think it might be worth something. I can't remember.
Which I think is Benny, isn't it?
It might be.
Yeah. So that feels us, because again, the family needs money. They need money.
Yeah, they do.
Supplies.
Absolutely.
So he can suggest that, and then, but William doesn't want to, because all he can do is there's just the smell all the time. And he's like, no, and when it gets to the point where he has to literally shout him down, which could then inform the next scene, which would be the bit where an allegory of where Thompson and Caleb are by the stream,
Mm-hmm.
and she comforts him.
Yes.
Okay. You know the bit where Mercy turns up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would, you see, that comes down to the point. That's when we see the twins watching the river, singing songs.
Yes.
Because that's about the point in the story that we see Jack whistling at the well.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our perfect witnesses to the scene.
Yeah, and again, it just plays out just like that.
Yeah.
We don't get the exchange.
We're still keeping some strong elements from what made The Witch good.
Yes.
But we're bringing. I like it. I do like it.
And it also brings into one, because it's the brook as well.
Mm-hmm.
You could even. Oh, that's brilliant! When you see the twins singing by the brook,
mm-hmm.
you could even just have a shot when they come and gather them up to go back to the house. Just the fish with the iridescent light from the
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, little things like that. Yeah. In
the brook.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, it's quite a small brook, so there may not be that many fish, but but that kind of thing, with a reflection on that, would be beautiful.
Yes,
absolutely.
It would be. Yes, I mean, I know it's too early in the story for this, but no, it's not that far off. It's a bit like when that first bug hatches from the well.
Yes, because there's no free flowing water at the time. So the first thing it does is it becomes that.
Yeah.
Whereas in here, it's right by the brook. It becomes a fish.
Yeah. And then.
That would look brilliant, because you could see it just as a fish as they're walking away, and then it just kind of unfurls all these kind of almost like something like it just unfurls.
Yeah, just unfolding.
Yes.
Unfurling. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's call a stop here.
Yeah, that feels like Act 1 to me.
That does feel like Act 1. We've rushed through it quite a bit this time, which is good. We're getting better with it. Yeah, so yes,
exciting. We like it.
We're going to take a pause here. So please do come back and join us next time when we carry on with our New England fairy tale. Obviously, as I said earlier, please do check out the creative protest. And also, if you want to be part of the competition, then please do subscribe. Send us your email to our email address, which is contact@xadrum.com. It will either be on the screen somewhere, either here or possibly here, but it will be in the description as well. So do have a look and join us next time. Thank you.
Of course, as always, if you're enjoying this and want to see more, please subscribe.
That's all I'm going to do is go, yeah, 2 thumbs up. Ba 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 ba.